So the other day a client came in and he brought a violin. What was really nice is that he wanted to have the violin done up for his wife. His wife used to play violin, but then she got busy, life got in the way, she didn't really get to play much, and then she had children, and now the children are quite small. And she told him recently that playing the violin always made her so happy. So he thought, right, I'm going to get her to play again. When they opened the case, they found this. And the instrument really needs a little bit of work done. Have a look. So the fingerboards definitely come off, but the bridge is like phenomenal. I can't believe it's actually staying up. So this is what happens when you kind of leave a violin for, over 10 years without playing it. That's amazing, isn't it? It must have gotten a bump or something along the way for the bridge to slip over like that. It is so crooked. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to carefully take off the strings and the bridge to make sure that nothing, I don't put any extra scratches on the instrument. So I'm going to basically put something underneath the bridge just to make sure. But apart from that, it's actually not that bad. It looks bad, but it just needs a good service. The great thing is the fingerboard's fallen off, so it's going to make it nice and easy to clean underneath the fingerboard. But I just really love the fact that the husband, wants his wife to play again, and that he's getting the instrument done up because violin playing makes her happy. And it'll be great for the kids as well to be introduced to that. Okay, here we go. I'm just going to lift the whole thing off like this, and then now I'm just holding it up. I'll take the bridge off. It's a bit on the crooked side, so I won't be using that anymore. But it is, in fact, one of my dad's bridges. Look at that. How cool is that? So my dad made that bridge many years ago. So I'm just taking the strings off in a bit of a violin maker kind of a way. The end pin came out at the same time. I'll worry about that later. I'm going to take this off. There's a bit of a problem just here on the edges. And I'm going to use a type of filler, like if in the future they want to spend more money and have pieces of timber inserted in there, they can. But for now, I'm just going to use a type of filler to do that. But it just needs a good clean. The instrument obviously needs the fingerboard put back on, and then fingerboard needs planing. It's going to need a bridge and sound post, and then some strings. So it's actually not that big a job, but obviously the first thing I will be doing is just giving it a bit of a clean and then gluing down the fingerboard. So I'm going to take it into the workshop now. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean under the fingerboard and clean and polish under the fingerboard, and then I'm going to glue on the fingerboard because everything else pretty much happens after that. So the fingerboard doesn't really need planing, which is great. It's going to actually save them money because, for her, that was basically more a student instrument. So, I'm going to try and do this repair, not too expensive, just to get her playing. But I'm just going to clean under the fingerboard quickly and give that a polish. I'm basically going to use water. Yeah, that's looking heaps better. So I can just use a tiny bit of this polish, and then I can glue the fingerboard on. Well, actually, I'm gonna just dissolve the previous glue a little bit. So I'm gonna use just some cold water just to dissolve the previous glue. I won't need to do that for very long because there's only a very thin layer of glue. It'll wash off very quickly. Just going to wait for 5 minutes. Okay, so it's been 5 minutes. I'm just going to get some hot water, wash off the previous glue. That's all coming off very beautifully. And then I'm literally going to just glue on the fingerboard straight away afterwards. I'm just going to heat up the fingerboard a little bit. I'll get the clamps ready first. So to clamp it, I'm going to put this clamping block underneath here, and then I will just use 3 of my clamps. Okay, here we go. And that's all I need now. Just gonna wipe the glue off the sides. So that's all I need. I'm going to pop it aside to dry now. There we go, and that'll be ready in the afternoon. It actually only needs to dry 3 or 4 hours, so I'll be able to continue working on it later today. So while I'm waiting, I'm just going to head out and have some lunch and some coffee, of course, very important, and then I'll get back and continue working on the violin. My favorite Vietnamese. Nice. I'm gonna have to go back to work soon though. Guess first I need to go for a bike ride. Gotta love the botanical gardens. It's like being out in nature. Okay, so I am back. I've done a little bit of extra work. Enjoyed, had a really nice bike ride, as you probably saw. Now I'm just gonna take the clamps off, and then I'm gonna give the whole instrument a clean. And after that I will be fitting the bridge. So the instrument's quite dirty, so I just want to give it a bit of a clean. Alright, so I boiled some water, I've got my cloth ready. I'm gonna clean this violin properly. That's looking good. I'll take these pegs out as well and just clean the peg box. So this violin was, it says made in Western Germany. My guess is that it was made from the makers that used to work in Bohemia, which became part of Czechoslovakia, or originally was part of Czechoslovakia, but there were times when Germany, when Germany basically ruled some of those areas. And after the Second World War, they pretty much kicked out all the Germans, so they established a new violin making culture in a place called Bubenreuth, and my guess is that that's the area this instrument was made. It looks very much like that kind of area. They didn't really specify, it just says Antonius Stradivarius Cremona, made in Western Germany, so straight copy. Just going to use a different cleaner. I've got a little visitor out there. I might just see if you want some food. Alright, so I have pretty much cleaned that. So that just needs to dry overnight. One quick thing I want to do is I just want to sand the fingerboard. So the fingerboard's got a fairly decent shape. It looks like, you know, with the bridge that my father did, he probably planed the fingerboard many years ago. And it hasn't been played for many years, so I'm just going to give a sand over it with very fine sandpaper and a bit of oil. Okay, that's all done. So fingerboard's looking a lot nicer, and I'll come back tomorrow morning and keep working on the violin. So see you tomorrow. Good morning, it's another day and I'm going to start getting straight into this repair to get it finished for the player. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this little edge here. So I'm actually going to fit a little piece of timber to it. I didn't quote for the repair, so I'm going to do this for free. But I thought it'd be good for you guys to see what I do. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bridge for this violin. So what I'll do is I'll make this little edge here. I'll do that first. Straight after I'll make the bridge, and then I'll do the cleaning and polishing after that. I don't know if I'm regretting this now. It's a little bit of a tricky one because the grain just isn't splitting the way it's supposed to. It was made from cheaper timber, so the grain is splitting the wrong way. But anyway, it's getting there. The next thing I need to do is find a piece of wood that I want to fit in there, and I'm gonna try one with matching grain. This one could work, so I just need to fit a small piece to there. Now I've just got to work out the right width. Okay, so I have fitted this. I'm super happy with that. I tried to match the grain as much as I could. Now, if this was a, even a $10,000 violin, I would spend a lot more time, but it just isn't. It's an old German violin. It's not that old. It's less than 80 years old. You see, yeah, definitely less than 80 years old because it's post Second World War, because it says made in Western Germany. So I think it was made in the Buchenwald area. Okay, so just for good measure, I might pop a clamp on there as well. Okay, now I can work on the bridge. All right. Well, that's all done. It's quite a low bridge, but that's going to work really well. I'm going to put that aside now. I'm going to let this dry, and then I'll get to polishing and doing the finishing touches. So I thought I'd be able to keep working on the violin the afternoon, but it turns out that I got really busy and wasn't able to work on the violin until today. It's actually the next day, it's the afternoon. We'll continue. So the violin's been cleaned. I've glued this little area, so I can take the clamp off now. That's well and truly glued, and I'll cut it back, just get that little corner looking right. So the next step is to do this scoop. It's only a tiny bit here, but I use a gouge, and the scoop is the bit where it kind of dips a little bit. So I've got this level now, so I just want to do the scoop next. So I'm going to mark in how far I'm going to do the scoop till. Okay, so the scoop is done, and next I have to align the whole edge so that it all looks the way the other edge looks. So I'm going to use a knife for that. That's getting very close to being finished. I'm going to use a finer grade of sandpaper next. Okay, I've just gotten some 400 grade sandpaper. So a little bit of the varnish has gone, but that's alright. I can work with that. Okay, I've just put a bit of water on here. That makes a grain come up, so I'm just going to put it aside. Okay, so I've let that dry a bit. I'm going to just go again. Okay, I've just sanded again with 400 grade sandpaper. And then I'll damp it again. In the meantime, I'll start polishing the rest of the instrument. I just won't be able to polish that little area. Alright, I'm going to leave that dry for a little while. I'll come back to it. I decided to just do a little bit of filling just where the purfling should go here. What I fitted just went over the purfling a bit. So I've just put a bit of filler on there. That will dry quite quickly, and then I'll cut it back and it'll look a lot better. It wasn't quite looking right before. So this filler dries really quickly, so I'm just quickly going to cut it back. Okay, so there it is. Now I'm ready to put a ground layer on. Just going to put a tiny dab of water on this whole area. Basically doing that so that the stain won't go into the timber too far. Looks like a slightly different color to the area next to it, but I'll work with that when I actually do the retouching at the end. So the next thing I'm going to do, I've got to let that dry, and then I'll put a bit of varnish on there. In the meantime, I might do another layer of polishing. Okay, so that area is dry enough now for me to put a layer of clear varnish on it, like just down here. Okay, that can dry for a bit. Then I'll probably do I'll have to put on a few more layers, and then I'll do some color retouching on it just to make it blend in with the rest of the instrument. Okay, I am back. Another morning. Finally got a t-shirt made with my logo. So now today I've literally just got to finish like retouching this area, and then I am going to put on the strings, which is super exciting. I also need to do a little bit more polishing. I'll do the retouching first. So I'm just going to mix some color, then I'll just retouch that little area. Just put a bit of varnish over the top. You can still see it, but the dark bit you see, this bit here is actually not the bit I repaired. It's a bit next to it, like it's this bit here. And like I said, I just did it fairly quickly because I'm not actually charging for it. Okay, now I've just got to give it another polish over, and then I should be able to put the strings on next. Okay, so this is ready to put the strings on. I'm going to do the rest of this area down here afterwards. I can put the strings on first, but I better just hang it up and let it dry for a bit, because otherwise the bridge is just going to stick to it. Okay, so I've waited for a while. I've just got to put these pegs in and put some peg paste on. They're fitting quite well. The interesting thing about these pegs is they are actually plastic pegs. They're quite well made German plastic pegs. You know, that's one way of saving timber, I guess. And they won't shrink or expand. But they actually look quite good, like they look fairly real. Just need to put on the tailpiece and the strings. Okay, so I got the tailpiece ready to go. I'm just gonna chop off the end and burn them off. It's just a bit neater. This is called a tail gut. It used to be made off a gut, the same as gut strings, but these days literally just a tail plastic. It's still called a tail gut. Yeah. I'll just get these strings on. As usual, I wind the strings quite tightly into the peg box. That way it kind of pushes the pegs in a little bit, making sure I keep the bridge straight. So I'm just going to put on a chin rest, and then I'll give the violin a little bit of a try. It should be ready for the client to pick up. After that, I'll just have to do a little bit more work on that edge. Fairly happy with it, but I want to do some extra, just a little bit of extra filling, and pop on the chin rest. Okay, I've got a bow here, so I'm just going to have a quick try. Okay, it sounds a bit flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to go back. I'll probably come back this evening and just play around with the sound post a little bit. Sometimes these German instruments actually didn't have the very best sound, but still, you know, the story is just beautiful. I really love the fact that the wife told her husband how much she always loved playing the violin, and that he actually went to the effort and is having the instrument being restored to, so she can play again. So that's really wonderful. It's a really beautiful story. I'm going to do a bit more tweaking with the violin, so I might come back and do that. Okay, I've got the violin all finished. I'm just going to give it a bit of a try. Yeah, it works well. The sound is a little bit small. I mean, quite often what they did with these instruments, because they were made like they were student instruments, they made them a little bit thicker, and so they wouldn't sound quite as rich and strong as some of the thinner instruments. That's not something some of the newer makers do these days. So quite often, like, you know, some of the really good quality instruments from, you know, like say some of the Chinese makers actually make some really nice sounding student instruments. That's in this kind of price class, which is about a $2,000 to $3,000 price class. But, you know, it was a good instrument at the time. So the player played at school. It was probably about 20 years ago. And it was already a second-hand instrument then. but it's made in Western Germany. It says clearly Western Germany, so that would be in the Boomroad area. What I really love about this story is that she's taking up violin playing again, and she said to her husband, she said, you know, violin playing always made me happy. And then, you know, finished school, just got busy with university. I think it was university or work or training and work. You know, and the instrument was in a slight state of disrepair as well, so it didn't really make it fun to play. She just kind of left it and didn't really didn't continue playing. And but now she has small children, and they thought it'd be really beautiful for, firstly, because it makes the wife so happy, but also you know, for the children to be exposed to violin playing. So that's really exciting. So it's really great that, you know, she's taking up the violin again, and I love working for people like that, because, you know, I can really feel the enthusiasm and when they see me, and I really, you know they're going to be passionate about it. So I really enjoy working with passionate players. Anyway, if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the little bell. That's pretty important, because that way you find out every time I post a new video. In the meantime, keep making beautiful music and have lots of fun playing, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!